Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Squanch. This is Wisecrack's Rick and Morty podcast. I am Michael Burns, joined as always by some Squanchers. We got Ryan Haley.
Wubba what's going on, Rick and Morty fans?
And very special guest today, Sierra Katow, a multi-hyphenate comedian, writer, actor, do everything type person. Sierra, how are you today?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you for that intro, Michael. I'm just happy to be here. Really excited to talk about Rick and Morty.
Well, we're happy to have you here. And today we're talking about episode 4 from season 5, Rick Dependent Spray. We're keeping our theme of every episode having to play off a popular movie title. Before we get into it, Sierra, I just want to chat for a second. So we know that you do all the things from just like checking out your work. And right now, if I have this correctly, you're currently writing for Close Enough on HBO Max?
Yes, yeah. We actually just wrapped the writer's room, but I was on season 3 of that show, so not out yet. But yes.
Oh, cool.
Very
So even if someone didn't enjoy the first 2 seasons, we can tell them confidently that they're going to love season 3 because that's the one that you were on.
Oh, yeah. Changed the game, you know?
Yeah.
But yes, it's been a real honor.
That's awesome. No, that's a really fun show, and it's a show that I know a lot of our fans on Wisecrack have hit us up before to ask if we could ever do something on it. So, yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
And I did want to ask about one thing. I found this really interesting. So you write, you perform. You also are a freelance web developer with a computer science degree from Harvard?
It's true, gotta do it.
That's
amazing.
amazing.
That's my plan B, I guess. And I love to do it sometimes on the side. And, gotta keep the parents happy.
That's
Sweet.
the best plan B ever. Anyone who's like trying to be in entertainment, follow Sierra's model. That's such a good thing to have the skill to be able to do.
We finally have a smart person on this podcast.
Finally.
Don't know if I count there, but
Yeah,
if
and
you ever need I guess I even forget a JavaScript or any sort of website made, here I am.
Amazing. And just before we dive into Rick and Morty, question for you. I know you're a stand-up comedian. Have you been getting back out there now that clubs are starting to open up again?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's definitely shows happening. I think people are really hungry to go and see live comedy. So it's actually been like much more forgiving audiences, even though I'm very rusty. So yeah, it's happening.
Amazing. Well, at the end, we'll take a second then. You should definitely shout out any shows you have coming up where Wisecrack fans based in Los Angeles can go see you. But we'll get into it now. We're talking Rick and Morty. We're talking this episode. Here's where we always get started. Let's do initial thoughts. Ryan, I'll let you go first. What were your initial thoughts and then your grade for episode 4, Rick Dependent Spray?
I'm going to go grade first and go C-, D+.
Ooh.
This is my least favorite of the series so far. Unfortunately, but I also like things about it. Like every Rick and Morty episode, it's not like a hard, I didn't like this one. There's things that I was laughing about. But overall, and I think D+ is probably even too harsh. I'm going to stick with C-. Yeah. Compared to everything else, yeah, I don't know, man. I kind of had similar gripes to what I did last week, where it felt gratuitously insane and not necessarily a good way, especially with all of the Morty jacking off through line was good. I wish it had been developed even more in I didn't love the episode. That's, I guess, we'll break it down, but I didn't love the episode. What did you guys think?
Okay, yeah. And Sierra, quick question to you. Before you tell us what you thought about the episode, can you just say a quick word? What's your general relationship with the show? Are you like a big Rick and Morty fan in general? Have you been watching it consistently? Just out of curiosity before we dive in.
Yeah, I am a big fan. I mean, I think I've missed a few episodes recently, especially in season 5, but the earlier seasons, binged them all, of course, like many people in college, I remember, and I know at least a couple people have written on it, and big fans of them and their work. So
great.
Yeah.
So then, what's your take on this episode?
Yeah, I think I'm similar to Ryan here. I definitely feel like it wasn't great. I have a lot of questions, but I guess probably a C, I would say, maybe a flat C. And I think there's definitely, it feels like maybe a season 5, like they're taking some chances and kind of just wanted to have one where they could do one of the things that they wanted to do for a long time or something. But yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Yeah, well, we are, if people were looking for arguments on this episode, I don't think you're going to find it in this sense, because I'm with y'all. I would give this a C, like a low middle C, not quite a C minus, but right on the cusp of that. I feel like sometimes the good cop's to Ryan's bad cop and be really optimistic about stuff. But yeah, as soon as the episode finished on my first watch, I kind of found myself saying out loud, like, that kind of sucked. Just in terms of what, we've come to expect from it. And I think one thing that's telling is, so over at Wisecrack, the past 3 episodes, we've done, these quick take reaction videos to the first 3 episodes of Rick and Morty, because there were some good ideas there we were able to dig into. And today at our meeting to discuss that, it was just a lot of, well, we could talk about this, but there was nothing that was like enough to really dig into, which is fine because the show's done a lot, but it felt like they were throwing a lot of things at the wall. There was a lot of interesting stuff going on. Didn't come together super well. And we could get into this more too. It felt like there was some things they were maybe trying to say that didn't get executed super well.
A lot of incest.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't like part of the way through the episode.
Overabundance of incest.
Yeah. I didn't need that.
Sure,
and this is
product.
This is 2 weeks in a row too, because last week there was an incest storyline in the episode, or like quick thing with 2 of the people on the dying alien planets, and the guy says, "I'm having sex with my dad." And then we have it this week, so that's not something I expected this season. Was 2 episodes in a row that reference incest.
I feel like we could start there for a second, because to me, like, I am not against a well-written incest joke. Okay, I'm just gonna say that. Like, if it's good and it makes you laugh, it works and it's worthy. But it's just like, it definitely felt like incest jokes for the sake of incest jokes in a weird way. Where it's just kind of like that was the joke, was how fucked up this whole scenario was. Which they do a good job of that, but it's always better when it fits into the grander narrative and they're saying something too. Where I don't know. I mean, did you see it? Is there a commentary on incest I'm missing? Like, please show it to me.
Not one that I caught. So
okay.
When you were saying I'm not against an incest joke, I thought you were going to say I'm not against incest. So I'm glad you said joke.
Oh no, yeah, no,
so
a joke. It's the joke part.
But yeah, I also agree. I think, the theme of it felt like maybe it was shame or something. I guess there wasn't like a bigger theme that made that seem like, oh, but haha, here's the incest part. That's like, the fun side of the overarching theme, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you bring up shame. I do think that's one of the main themes, if there is one. But before we get into that, let's do a quick recap, and then we will dive into some of these topics and see if we can find something interesting going on here. But here's our recap for Season 5, Episode 4. We open with Morty joining Beth at work at the horse hospital, where Morty learns about the breeding mount they use to extract semen from horses. He then spends a week using it to pleasurably extract vital fluids from himself under the guise of volunteer work. Rick then shows up at home with a barrel of horse milk that he plans to use to create a bioweapon, and rather than warning him that it's actually an entire barrel of a 14-year-old boy's semen, Morty lets him use it, leading to the creation of a race of sperm monsters. While the space sperm go on a killing spree, and Summer and Beth wonder how big space penises are, the President of the United States brings the family in so Rick can solve Morty's problem. Morty, by the way, is so caught up in his own shame, he refuses to reveal the truth and lies right to the President's face. Also, every dude in power in this episode is wildly sexist at every opportunity to both Summer and Beth. The sperm all head to the Grand Canyon because, and Rick and Morty team up with some Marines to go take them out. Once there, Morty bonds with one of the sperm who recognizes Morty's crotch as his genetic home, and Rick eventually learns the truth of Morty's after-school volunteer activities because of the sperm queen. And then she milks Morty for more of his genetic material. Summer, meanwhile, finally convinces the President that they can catch all the sperm with a giant egg, and then the President quickly gives credit to a scientist who says that he came up with Summer's idea. Eventually, Morty's sperm friend Sticky breaks Rick and Morty out of the sperm queen's cave, and they head to Vegas, where all the sperm are headed to impregnate Summer's giant egg, which she's still not getting credit for. Before they can help, Rick and Morty are accosted by the Chuds, an underground race of horses, but their lives are spared after the king learns that Rick put a baby in his daughter. The Chuds, along with a bunch of Vegas performers who are deputized, then fight alongside Rick and Morty to kill the sperm before they can impregnate Summer's egg. Sticky saves the day by taking out the sperm queen before she enters the egg, but then he enters the egg himself. We end with a massive incest baby being flown into space with a speed that would make Richard Branson jealous. And then after the credits, we see some astronauts encounter this baby. That's the episode. So let's dive in then. Sierra, you brought this word up a second ago. It seems like if there's any thematic for the episode, it is shame. And in particular, Morty's shame about aspects of his own sexuality or sexual desires or something like that. Do we all kind of see that one?
I would say shame and what like taking responsibility for your own actions, I guess, which is in this case is him jerking off in this horse thing. So it's like that is a funny concept to me. It's like he is literally being asked by the president of the free world, like, hey, well, like we need to know what's going on. And he's like so ashamed that he did this, and it's that's so absurd. Like I like that is the basis of the episode. That's funny. It's just that it didn't really go anywhere else from there. What'd y'all think?
Yeah, I also liked. I think I could see where the premise was pretty funny. Like, given that it's the mom's workplace too, and you're just trying to volunteer after work or whatever to use that machine, which is horrifying if it comes out. So I think that was cool. But yeah, I guess maybe past like the cold open of when he has to actually come clean, it does feel like, oh well, a lot of stuff was it wasn't really Morty's fault, right? That they kind of turned into this huge thing, so it kind of feels like overblown for his own actions. But that is funny that the president gets involved. But yeah,
I know the second time we've seen the president in 4 episodes, I'm pretty sure. So that's always fun. But yeah, I do think and we've talked about this a little bit. I think throughout this season thus far, they have been exploring different aspects of like human psychology, because we've talked about religion, they've talked about war, and the way in which these feel like primordial to the human experience of the world. And I did think a little bit about our old friend and someone who some people don't like, Sigmund Freud, who, when he talks about shame, makes it this fundamental part of human psychology, that like we're born, we have these different desires, many of them sexual. Society tells us that those things are bad or weird, so we kind of suppress that and find other ways in society to like bury those things or place them where they're appropriate. But that like the repression of shame is just fundamental to the human experience. So I did think, there was times at which I thought they handled that in interesting ways. And I think, especially when we get to the end of the episode, it's telling that when, Morty speaks to Kathy Ireland, former Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, who is married to the Marine whose name I forget, who was a mythical figure. But, she like begs him to be honest and tells Morty that like the truth is all that matters. And then he's honest and she immediately gets pissed. So I felt like there was some sort of commentary on how like in society there's so many things that we are shameful about, but then we're told to like be honest and express ourselves, but then you do, and you get in trouble for that. And it's an interesting contrast too between Morty and Summer, because this is the second episode in a row where Summer's been pretty open about her sexual desires. In the last episode, she was like traveling around going to orgies with Rick. In this one, she kind of again has a few comments with Beth that are very sexual in nature. So she's kind of like opening up, expressing that. Morty, on the other hand, seems like he's almost punished when he tries to be honest.
Absolutely. And the for it seems like the series, the thrust, if you will, of the season so far is Morty's sex life, right? Like he had the whole thing with Planet Tina, right, last week. And then I want to say in the first 2 episodes, I'm blanking on it.
There's the Jessica thing early on.
No, the whole Jessica thing in the first episode, right? And now here we are. It's like he's been rejected for a couple episodes, so now he's stuck to jerking it in the horse lab, and that's its own kind of, he wasn't getting the girl, so that was kind of, he felt bad about that. Now he's literally getting shamed for masturbating all the time, so he can't do anything right, it seems like. So to me, I guess if I'm gonna stretch and like make a justification for the whole, incest through line, it's just kind of like that is the ultimate fucking taboo, right? Where it's just like if that, it's like, oh, he's responsible for this incestuous relationship with Summer now because he jerked off like in the horse lab, like I guess that is the ultimate thing that you would maybe be shamed for or something, and that's why they went that far. And there was that really I thought it was funny how they had that line where Morty literally goes, yeah, this is even fucked up for us or something like that, right? He like straight up just comments in a meta way that this is a way more insane episode than others. It's just that I don't think, based on our reviews or people in the chat and stuff, it's like it doesn't seem like they succeeded in making it funny, at least.
Harsh.
I know. Sorry, Dan. Sorry, Justin. Sorry, everyone else involved.
Yeah, I know. Interesting too that. Yeah, and there's even the scene. And I didn't say any of that. I like all of you. I think everything you do is good, and everyone any showrunner in the world is good and pure. And I have only good things to say about you. And you could find my information later. But there was that moment too where the sperm queen refers to like all the sperm as Morty's shame incarnate. So I like that they were kind of going for that too, as like this representation of like his shame literally following him. And then this is going to be a huge stretch right here. This is ridiculous, and I'm giving them way too much credit. But then it's sort of like his one sperm he makes friends with is the sort of like coming to terms with shame, the one that sort of like recognizes him, and they have some relationship. And it's like by accepting that one sperm, he's accepting that part of himself or something like that. But that's a stretch.
I like where your head's at.
Yeah, I won't go any further than that. Yeah.
The Morty Sticky relationship was cute. I thought that was a fun, I guess I was confused why Sticky looked so different from the rest of them.
Yeah.
But, maybe because it was the sweetest one.
Yeah. Did you all think they're trying to draw a more explicit parallel between Rick and Morty here, in that both of their stories, and it was a kind of minimal B plot in this one, but in both cases, they're getting into trouble because of sexual desires. So, Rick's getting himself in trouble because he gets the Chud princess pregnant. Morty's getting in trouble because of the horse sperm machine. We know that Rick in the past gets himself in trouble because of what he does sexually. Are they trying to point towards this world where like Morty is becoming more like Rick as he ages or something?
I don't see that necessarily. I mean, it's funny you say that though, because there is that funny line where Rick admits he has like substance abuse problems, right? Or because he doesn't remember
Yes.
that entire relationship he has. That's a step forward for Rick, But yeah, maybe we are kind of seeing this cycle start happening where Morty is becoming more like Rick, but Rick is starting to clean up his act. And to me, what I took from the Sticky, the sperm looking like that, was that he's clearly like, to me, like the dumb sperm, like that's like a joke. It's like, oh, that dumb friend I have is probably somehow the slowest sperm made it or something,
Yeah, it did.
and so that's what I saw Sticky, but it was like Morty was like, oh, taking Sticky under his wing, and maybe it was like Morty related with Sticky because maybe he was not the brightest sperm in the dick. Okay, or however you want to put it.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I kind of felt like this was, anything where you're coming of age, like Morty, this is a very coming of age story, I suppose.
Yes,
so
totally.
it could be that he's, they're kind of pushing him forward a little bit more. I mean, I guess he's like even thinking more of Morty not as like the innocent one who's getting dragged along and you kind of feel bad for, right? That's kind of like his MO. And so like it's kind of interesting to see him, hitting these kind of milestones.
Right.
Yeah.
Like having his own child.
Aww. I mean, it is funny too that like the parallels with Morty and his, I guess his son Sticky, that Sticky helps them in so many scenarios, but then when it all comes down to it, he does the thing that they were trying to prevent. he still can't help himself but following that urge to enter the egg. Similar to his dad, who seems like he cannot keep himself out of trouble if his teenage horniness is somehow a factor in his decision making. So definitely like a like father like sperm moment there.
Absolutely, and we had a plus comment from the chat. McRae Valerie says coming of age, spelled Cumming. Thank you.
Wow, and also thanks in the chat. I'm sorry if I say your name wrong. To Simintali Batiste for your generous donation. We really appreciate it, and thank you for your support.
Oh yeah, that rocked.
Yeah, it rocks very much. Well, Sierra, was there anything that off the sort of shame stuff that you noticed in this episode, or anything you wanted to talk about to, invite you on here and then put you on the spot?
Oh yeah, no, love it. Yeah, I think with the shame stuff, I guess I didn't make the parallel between that. I think, was his name Blazin or the
Yes,
mercenary
Blazin.
guy? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, the fact, because I was kind of confused about his character initially. So I was like, this is, I kind of love the guest stars of Rick and Morty, right? And I feel like we had him, and then he kind of, I was like a little confused about the whole Kathy Ireland thing. But yeah, I think it kind of makes sense in now thinking back to that connection that they're trying to show everybody's levels at which they had their different bouts with shame, whether that was wearing a thong or and hiding it after, even posthumously, or Morty himself. But and then I guess, like, I don't know, maybe this is branching too much off topic, but I guess I was kind of interested in like Vegas as a setting, because that's sort of like, okay, so that's Sin City, that's where you cast all your shame aside and you go for it. So I see why they ended up there, but I was kind of like, I felt like that and the Grand Canyon didn't feel as connected, other than like geographically, I guess they're close, so they would be able to go to both. But like, I guess I was wondering if like they wanted to do more Vegas, or just Vegas as an afterthought or whatever, because I don't know, I maybe would have liked to see them drill harder into Vegas, or really stick in the Grand Canyon if that's what they wanted to do. But yeah, so I guess those were kind of my initial things, and they're related to shame, but.
No, the Vegas thing is great because when you really think about what Vegas represents in like the American consciousness, it's like the place where you leave your repressive tendencies at the airport until you get back, where people go to like do things and indulge in desires that they would never do back in, Wichita or Tallahassee or wherever. And wasn't there like the marketing campaign that Las Vegas had a few years ago? Was it just like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so there's that whole thing that like this is where you go to let that happen. So of course that's the city where like technically Morty and Summer would end up with like a giant incest baby on top of a pyramid getting shot into space. Because where else would like desire run rampant like that?
And it subverts that phrase because it's not staying in Vegas. It's
yeah,
the whole world can see it above the atmosphere.
Yeah. Also, it seemed like another choice. I mean, I feel like since the show is kind of avoiding serialization or having, things that happen in one episode play too much into what happens down the line, it seems like they're taking bigger swings with that, like shooting a massive incest baby into space, knowing they're never going to have to deal with this again. I find pretty bold. If it was any other show or a show that had more serialization, I'd be like, well, what's going to happen to that now? But I'm sure that will just be an afterthought we'll never hear about again.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, it's one way to get rid of that, I guess, plot line is to shoot it into space.
Yeah. Do we think there's any relationship between, because one of the other themes of the episode was sort of Beth and Summer in different ways being belittled or not listened to. Summer throughout the episode is pitching all of these ideas, and the first time she pitches the idea about the egg, the president gives credit to the scientist guy. The second time around, he avoids giving Summer credit and credits like the cast of Cirque du Soleil or something like that.
Humanity.
Yeah. And
and
even
right.
even Beth kind of is the one who's like, why the Grand Canyon? And is a little bit like, okay, you guys are idiots. So any thoughts on what they were trying to get at or say with the Beth and Summer stuff in this episode? I guess the Summer stuff in particular.
Yeah. I mean I liked the first bout of that when, you know, the scientist gets credit right after. Like, I thought that was pretty funny because it was like, because I thought Beth's reaction was funny, which was like, you're finally a woman or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I guess going back to coming of age, you know, if I guess this is Morty's coming of age, maybe it's also Summer's, because if you get your idea taken, that you're a woman. But I think it was also like, I guess it was such a clearly sperm-driven, which is tied to guys-driven episode.
Yeah.
I think it was, you know, somewhat necessary to have some like self-awareness around that with some of the other characters, especially Beth and Summer. And I'm not like super familiar with why Zoomanity was highlighted there, but I remember seeing ads for them, and I think it's a very, you know, apparently it's kind of like a R-rated or X-rated version of Cirque du Soleil, in case anybody's going to Vegas.
Yeah. Well, yeah, everyone, you know, this episode's sponsored by the Las Vegas Tourism Council. Enter code Morty Sperm for 15% off. No, but it's kind of interesting, too, that, you know, Morty causes all the problems and kind of gets away with it to a certain extent. You know, this idea that, like, men and young men make dumb decisions based on, you know, their sexual desire, get away with it, whereas Summer is trying to proactively help the situation and gets, like, shooed away and doesn't get credit for it. So I think that parallel was definitely going on there. Ryan, any thoughts on this one?
I think you just pretty much summed it up. There is that funny scene where they literally jump on Morty's sperm to ride in to save the day, you know, which I think is a visual metaphor that I don't know if we needed, but it's apt,
Yeah.
you know, for this show.
Yeah, I will say the animation was really good at that part. When they have Beth and Summer riding the sperm, I was like, you know, I think fun. A few points this season, the animation looks like it's taken a level up. So that was cool to see in terms of things that were just positive. Now I know none of us love this episode, so I don't want to force the breakdown any more than we have to. Anything else anyone wanted to bring up before we jump over to the mailbag?
I just want to give a shout out to Amazing Jonathan's cameo. He's one of the best comedy comedians ever. Go check out Amazing Jonathan if you haven't checked him out. Not the crappy documentary that came out recently. That's no good.
Oh, we don't like the documentary?
No, it's stupid. It's one of those
okay,
like the filmmaker made it all about himself, and it's like him trying to make a documentary about Amazing Jonathan. Boo! Amazing Jonathan's cool on his own.
Okay, This is good to know, because when I saw that, I thought to myself, like, oh, I've never watched that doc. Was there anything, Ryan, with the Amazing Jonathan taking the heart out, saying, "Is this your heart"? Was that like a reference to anything deep in his comedy, or just kind of a silly Vegas joke?
It totally is a reference. Like, I want to say that that's even maybe a direct bit. Like he always has these literal bits. Like the one I always remember as a kid where he goes, "I will now attempt to pull this rabbit from a hat." And he just has a big top hat. And then he takes a gun out and goes, "Pull!" And then a bunny comes out and then he shoots it, you know? It's like that kind of jokes and comedy, you know? So yes, I assume that there's a heart joke that he has made, or maybe that's just like an Amazing Jonathan-esque bit. But if you know, please send us an email and tell us for sure.
Please do. Sierra, any other thoughts on this episode in particular before we jump into some mailbag activities?
Oh, final thoughts. Let's see. Oh, you know, one thing we haven't talked about yet was the queen, the sperm queen, I guess, like, and that thing. And I think, you know, when they set up with the, like, what I did like is, yes, there are definitely in action movies, right? It's sort of like it's like you can't really have like a guy beating up a woman, even if she's a bad guy. It happens sometimes in movies, but you know, normally you have your female protagonist. Yeah. You have your female protagonist now being the one to take that person down. So, you know, I see what they're going for there. Wasn't, you know, maybe wasn't my favorite villain of the series, but I think, yeah, that was, I don't know what everyone else's thoughts on that were, but just wanted to shed light.
Yeah. And out of curiosity, before we move on, Ryan, I feel like you're paying attention to the chat. Are people in agreement with us, or are there people that love this episode and think that we're just idiots that missed the point?
No, everyone agrees. Everyone is basically like, this was kind of a miss episode. Where they just, they were trying to see how far they could go. Some people think it's like a shock jockey kind of episode, which I can totally see that. Yeah.
But, they still have, a long season ahead of us, a lot of, episodes still. And I do think, this season, one of the coolest things about Rick and Morty is they brought on a lot of cool new writers. I think maybe sometimes there's like a bit of a growing pang of like transitioning the voice from some of the older writers, some of the newer writers, and experimenting and trying stuff out. I kind of still have faith that they're going to land on their feet. And the first three were great.
That second episode was so.
Perfect.
Let's not forget how amazing that second episode was. Let's still live off the high of that. Okay, they're experimenting. They're taking big swings.
Yeah.
Let's not give up on them yet.
I'd rather have this than them being too safe.
Oh yeah, and Def in the chat made a comment, an observation. Incest is the real threat of this season. Def says so. Let's see. Hopefully they're wrong, but we'll see next week, and we'll check back in to see if incest truly is the overarching theme of the season.
Wow, what a scary thought of them just in the room, and someone goes up to the whiteboard and just writes incest, and is like, "Well, guys, let's get the season going."
This is the season. This is what we're talking about this season. This is the topic that needs to be broached with society.
Find a way to put this in every scene.
We're not talking about this enough. All right.
Yeah. Well, good, but this is good. I'm glad we're in a place where we can acknowledge that this episode wasn't the best. The season's still doing some cool stuff. We're still hopeful moving forward, so I'm very excited.
And like we said at the beginning, this isn't even the worst. There's been worse Rick and Morty episodes. This goes somewhere.
Most definitely.
This is the worst. C minus, guys.
You C's, people used to say C's get degrees. And, is it a good investment to get C's if you're going into that for college? No, you should maybe do a little bit better, but it still works. It still gets you out the door. So
it passes.
Yeah. Well, then let's give it some time here to hear what everyone else has to think. So Ryan has been checking the chat. That's great. But if you are not here live, if you're listening later, we want to hear what you have to think about this episode. So you can get in touch with us in two ways. One is you can email us at squanch@wisecrack.co. There is no M there. Squanch@wisecrack.co. Is it just CO because we're like a massive corporation? Is that why .company?
Yeah.
Because we're a huge industrial multimedia conglomerate. That makes sense. Yeah, we have 5 employees. And you can call us and leave a voicemail at 213-534-8807. That is 213-534-8807. So let's look at some emails we got this past week. Curious to hear what everyone has to think about these. We have some fun theories and questions people threw, and these are mostly about the last episode. So the first email is from Jeff. Jeff says this: the conversation on Planetina's villainousness got me thinking about when or when not causing harm is justified. What is different from an army causing civilian casualties from Planetina's eco-terrorism, especially if it's an army fighting for what's billed as a good cause, i.e. an American army fighting Nazi Germans? Hope the season keeps entertaining us and giving us fertile food for thought. So I'm curious to hear what everyone thinks about that. Did the last episode try to get us to think about the fact that maybe sometimes you can get messy and violent if it's for a good cause, or is Jeff just trying to get us to admit, eco-terrorist tendencies on the podcast?
I mean, that's kind of what we, I think we had said, coming in the whole road to hell is paved with good intentions metaphor, and just finding that line is the whole name of the game, and moral relativism, or not moral relativism, but yeah, like weighing two options. It's the whole, if I pull the train and I kill one person, that, or if I pull the lever and it kills 3, whatever the fuck it is. You know what I'm trying to say? It's the same. This is the dilemma we're in. And what do y'all think? Would you pull the train lever or not?
Whoa.
Would you kill one person or 3 people?
Wow.
Anyway,
I'd probably do it wrong and everybody would die.
All right,
yeah,
there you go.
What ends up happening.
It's like, hey, Sarah, welcome to the podcast. Would you kill a bunch of people?
Or less people.
Are we live?
Yeah. I will say that's an interesting thing coming out of the episode, though, that it leaves those questions hanging. And I think sometimes, not to be too pretentious with it, the best art that makes us think about stuff doesn't give us the answers. It gets us thinking and leaves us with questions to ask, which I think is a cool thing.
I agree.
Yeah. We have some other questions or issues on the same episode. So this is from Fabrizio. Fabrizio says this: this may be an easy take, but I thought that the reason why Planetina killed a bunch of people and in general did bad stuff is because she, unlike Captain Planet, didn't have the heart power. Maybe with it, she wouldn't have done all that. Thank you, guys. So we had a few emails and comments about this, that I guess in the original Captain Planet, there's a fifth Planeteer that has the heart power, and that Planetina does not have that. Did either of y'all catch this during that episode? Because I definitely didn't.
Yeah, I think we even said it in the episode, in our podcast at some point, I think.
Wow.
Towards the end.
That's horrible that I was just so zoned out that I missed that on the podcast.
It's okay. But yeah, no, that does seem like some sort of weird commentary, because she's notably absent, from the thing. But yeah, maybe that's true. I will say that as a child, I didn't conceptually grasp what the heart thing was all about, because I can understand wind and fire, like you see those elements, but I'm like, what is this heart person like? Like, what does that visually look like, really? And it didn't ever work for me. Sorry, this is the gripes of a 6-year-old child I'm talking about right now. But what'd y'all think, Sierra?
Oh, I mean, I've been silent because I am a bad guest. I did not see the last episode, so I have no comment,
problem.
But I got to catch up. So I'm excited.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. Yeah. I would rather that be the case and not you just being like, well, I have a lot of thoughts, but can't get a word in with these two assholes. So
okay.
I'm glad. But it is a good episode. Worth checking out. So Paul said this. Another thing I didn't really flag in the episode. He says, at one point, Planetina explains, Mother Nature has enlisted the help of 4 young adults from each major ethnicity. They combine the powers of their elemental rings to create me. And Paul says, did you guys notice that the 4 major ethnicities are black, Asian, white, and white? And I did not catch that at all, that they say 4 major ethnicities and it's half of them are white people. A kind of, I don't know, I feel like they're doing like lots of, I would say like subtle, more like social commentary jokes this season, and that definitely seems like it would be one of them.
Maybe it was because Steve Buscemi was supposed to be playing some New York Italian dude, and that's the route they were going. They were drawing the line.
Yes, the Italian is its own racial category.
Also, we got a very pertinent observation from Def again, that says Morty is the heart. That's what they think, that Morty takes the place of the heart. Interesting. Thank you for showing us the meaning there, Def.
Yeah. So last email we'll get into, and as always, we love when you write in. We love when you call. We don't have time to read every email on the air, but we read them all and we appreciate them all, and they help us as we think through this stuff. So I just wanted to thank everyone again who does write in. If we're not going to read it this time, we'll get it next time. But also, if you're going to write something that's really long, we're definitely going to read it, but we're probably not going to read it on the air because we only have so much time. So if your goal is to get on air, keep it shorter. But this is from Christoph, and this is a longer one, so I might summarize here and there. It says, Planetina is a metaphor for the power to save the planet. It was controlled by millennials like us that were taught that Michael's 3-minute showers, and this is the thing last week, Sierra, I referenced it as a kid. I remember thinking that, because of the thing I saw on Nickelodeon, that I had to take short showers to save the planet, because if I use too much water, climate change is going to be my fault. And our guest last week, Austin, talked about cute projects about acid rain. But basically, millennials thought that these things would stop climate change instead of corporations exploiting the planet and us consuming too much, so we wouldn't turn on capitalism. While controlled by the children who have sold their power to the highest bidder, she fights only the symptoms, not the root cause. When the power goes over to Gen Z Morty, never thought about Morty in the generational paradigm before, Planetina becomes more radical and protests by setting a congressman's house on fire. And now that she is not held back in her efforts to heal the planet by her 90s indoctrinated ring handlers, she realizes she has to become more radical, what you alluded to as an eco-terrorist. She's like the radical wing of the Fridays for Future or Extinction Rebellion movement, the one that comes out more when we have extreme heat in Canada, tornadoes in the Czech Republic, etc., etc. Let's see. So they recycle by day and take out climate change denying politicians at nighttime. The writers are basically saying that if we have known about climate change since the 60s, generation after generation will become more aware and feel the consequences. And once the inaction by those in power goes on too long, it is not about fighting the symptoms such as acid rain and forest fires, but instead going after politicians and corporations exploiting the planet. And then they say, I wish she had offered a universal basic income to the miners instead of killing them, but that is probably not one of her powers. So a thing that happens, sorry to spoil this at all, Sarah, but this Planetina character who's based on Captain Planet gets a little aggressive at the end and burns down a mine, including the miners that are in it because they're still polluting the planet. But I don't know. What do y'all? And I think you can, jump in on this if you want to say, Ara, even if you didn't see the episode. What do we think about this idea that like Planet Tina shows us this like generational differences in how we respond to climate change, and this idea that it used to be like be a good consumer, but now in the quote unquote Gen Z perspective, it's a little bit more like maybe it's not all our fault.
Yeah, I love that take. I think that's cool, and I think that using Captain Planet kind of drives that home because it's such a '90s icon kind of thing, and it's such a it's a very particular kind of like, oh, just if you just clean up this one bottle, or don't, you shouldn't even use those kind of bottles. Then we're all in this together, kind of, and that'll do it. That's all we need to do. But it's way more complicated than that, right?
Yeah,
and I think that episode kind of shows us. No.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because right now I think we're all in the Los Angeles area, and I've gotten alerts today that we're currently having a flex alert in California where we're supposed to reduce our power consumption from 4 to 9. And, I have like the fans off at home. But in my head, it's just like, I don't think the people that live in like the very massive houses I can see from out the window are turning off their AC and their third refrigerator. And I don't think a lot of people are doing that. So it's that question again of like when, the power grid screwed up, it's like, you guys fix it. I think kind of plays into this, and we're kind of living that logic out. So shouts to everyone listening who's in California and is getting weird things scaring them, making them think if they don't turn stuff off, they're going to make the power go out. Do you guys ever get anxious about that when there's like alerts that it's going to be your fault when your neighborhood's power goes out?
I don't know. I've gotten many of those.
Yeah. I've seen a few, and I would always, as a kid, I think, because I grew up in LA, our power would go out the first. We signed up for this program, I think, where it was like, yeah, shut off our power if you need extra power. So we would go full summers with like not no power, but just like no AC for sure, and definitely like certain things.
So your folks were like the good eco people that were like, we'll take one for the team for the sake of the
right. I think that was the idea initially, and then it was like, what have we done? So yeah, now we're on the full, burn it all down.
That's amazing.
Transition generations.
Yeah. I think it's probably just like repressed Catholic guilt or something I have, but there's times when it's like there's a heat wave. I'm just like, if I turn the air down one more degree, is it going to be my fault that the grid goes out in my neighborhood and everyone has to deal with it? And that's crazy. And once again, this is probably a symptom of me growing up in the 90s and watching all this stuff that says everything is our fault. So there you go. A little power-based psychoanalysis at the end of the episode. Well, before we wrap up, and this, I guess, segues a little bit, we're still doing quick takes of Rick and Morty episodes on the Wisecrack YouTube channel. We are not doing one this week, so if you're waiting for one, stop waiting. But the last one was on this very topic, and we asked the question, was Planet Tina right? And we get into some recent work by some environmental scholars and activists and look at the question of how we can respond to gnarly climate change stuff. So check those out. Now, most importantly, if you want to get in touch with any of us, not on this podcast, via social media, let's talk about where we can do that. So Sierra, where, if people want to like see your tweets or see clips of your comedy online and all those sorts of things, where can they find that?
Oh, yeah. I'm all the same handle. My full name, Sierra Katow, SIERRA KATOW. That's on Instagram primarily. Twitter, I do have, not as frequent on there. TikTok, I have a website where I will list some live shows for stand-up, and
awesome.
YouTube.
Well, great. Well, check that out. And if you are in the LA area, why not get back out and see some live comedy? So go to Sierra's website, see where she's going up, and check some of that out, because we've all watched too many front-facing videos and YouTube videos the past year, and they're funny. We love them. We make them, but let's go see some real live comedy. So that's great. Ryan, people want to talk to you, see what you're working on, get more involved in the Ryan Haley extended universe. Where can they do all these things?
Check my videos out, Ryan Shorts. I'm editing a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills tour video right now. My friend runs it out of his white Bronco he uses for his O.J. Simpson tour van. Anyway, it's a whole long thing.
Is that all real?
It's all real. A man named Adam Papagan. He does the best tours in LA. But anyway, that's what I'm working on right now. Check me out, Ryan Shorts, on all the platforms, or I'm on Funhouse sometimes. So that's the deal.
That's amazing. You can find me at Michael O. Burns on the social media stuff. And if you are in the Southern California area, working on getting a new fun live variety show going that's going to start, I think, next month. So I'll talk about that on social media and beg you to come hang out.
Sweet.
Yeah, and hey, open invite to anyone who's currently on this podcast. But for right now, Sierra, thank you so much for coming through. Really appreciate having you here.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
So
come
fun.
back whenever. We will
Yeah, it
bump
was a good
guests
talk.
to have you.
Appreciate it, Sarah.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Ryan, thank you as always. But let's end this train here. This has been the Squanch. We'll be back next week. Final words, as always, go to Ryan Haley. Ryan, what do you got for us?
Wubba-lubba-dub-dub from Hollywood, California. Leave the incest behind. Rick and Morty, please.
Okay, we'll see you next week, guys. Thank you so much.